the first year following all the training when I implemented everything, the business grew 200%. And now this was all during COVID, people as well too. So, okay.
Yeah, that's great.
I opened up in January 2020 and, everything went to hell in March 2020.
Yeah,
So
yeah, it did.
it did, but that's okay, right? As an entrepreneur, you need to figure out how to climb those mountains. They're not obstacles. You just need to figure out how you're climbing.
Welcome to another episode of the Daring Dreams podcast. I'm your host, Hayley Bohan, and I am especially happy to be here today with my dear friend, past client, inspiration, really, Kathryn Speers. And Kathryn owns a company called Thermography Clinic NB. And her story is pretty inspiring, especially for those of you who haven't yet jumped on the entrepreneurial train, but like you have that little nudge and it's telling you to go. We're going to hear from Kathryn about how she was able to do that, leaving a big corporate job and really starting to reinvent herself and her business. So, welcome, Kathryn.
Thank you, Hayley. It's a pleasure to be here, as always.
Yeah. So before we kind of kick in, let's give the audience some context as to kind of who you are and what is thermography, what is your business. Let's just start there so they have an idea of what's going on.
Yeah, no problem. So my name is Kathryn Speer. I live in a beautiful little spot here in the Petitcodiac region. My day-to-day clinic is in Moncton, New Brunswick, with, I call them my little mobile clinics across New Brunswick, PEI, and Newfoundland. We'll get into that a little bit later. But, basically, what is thermography? When I first started, it'd be almost 5 years ago, soon, everyone would say, what the heck is thermography?
I
So
couldn't even say the word.
I know. It's very hard for people, right? So thermography is not new. It's been around since 1956. It was actually developed at McGill University. But for the Atlantic provinces, being introduced to it about 4.5 years ago, it's very new. So new terminology, nobody knew kind of what it was. But what thermography is it's digital infrared thermal imaging. So better yet said this, most people watch movies. So if you watch any war type movies or sci-fi movies, when they use thermal imaging to find where people are hiding or bombs, things that nature, I want you to think about, okay, that's thermal imaging. Our bodies, we're all, we're energetic. We're made up mostly of water, right? And so there's an energy behind that. Our bodies give off a thermal imprint. That thermal imprint can indicate, with using the right medical software, can indicate where there are dysfunctions in the body. So it is a physiological scan of the body. Physiological meaning functional. So how is the body functioning or not functioning? And I like to refer to it, give people an example because I'm very much visual based as well too. It's like that check engine light that comes on in your vehicle. When that comes on, it's telling you, oops, I got a little problem here. I need you to pay attention.
Yeah.
Or, before I leave you stranded on the side of the road. Well, our bodies are kind of the same way. And hopefully we see you before, it leaves you stranded on the side of the road. But our bodies are very much the same. It's giving you that check engine light that comes on that says, hey, you might want to pay attention here to this area, right?
Yeah.
Long before a disease sets in. Another example of this that will help people resonate is that, when you go to the hospital and you're getting scans done, right? An X-ray, a mammogram, or a CAT scan, things of that nature. It's very much looking at structural changes in the body, right? So what is happening from a structure perspective? Is there a lump? Is there a broken bone? Is there something structurally happening? Whereas what we look at is the functional piece. So
Okay.
a lot of times we'll have people come and say, look, I've had all the scans done at the hospital. Nobody can seem to figure out what's going on. Well, that tells me that's happening in the physiological body, which is the functional body, which is what we scan. Right?
Okay.
So I'll stop there because I'll get too technical, but hopefully that gives you some, really good examples of what thermography is and what it isn't. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So like it takes pictures inside your body and shows you where it's hot or cold. And then
Yep.
if there's something going on.
There's,
Something
yes,
you need to check it.
yeah, there's a science behind it, right? And, I certainly don't do the readings of the scans because you actually have to have a doctorate background in order to be able to read the thermal images, which happens at our corporate office in Toronto.
Okay. Okay. Excellent. Thank you for that. Okay. So let's kind of share with the audience, how did you kind of come up with the idea for doing this? Like, what was the instance or spark that led you to do this?
Yeah, I call it my soul moment.
Oh, nice. I love that.
So I was in corporate business for approximately 20, almost 20 years as a executive director in the call center industry. So I traveled the world and helped clients set up their customer service bases. And I was always very interested, though. I'll go back just a little bit. I was always very interested in natural health, being proactive and preventative, right, from a healthcare perspective. But I also always knew that there was something bigger for me out there than just the job that I was doing. I felt that at a very young age, and I knew that as I was still in the corporate world. However, I was a single mom for many, many years. I was raising two of my kids. So corporate job paid really great money. It allowed me to take care of my kids on my own without having to worry how I was going to put food on the table the next week. So for me, and I was good at it and I enjoyed it. And I love my clients. I love the people I got to meet across the world. But I also knew that there was something more to my life. And I just could never put my finger on it. I was always taking courses, in naturopathic stuff or energy healing, or just I
Oh,
was
interesting.
searching. I was always searching. And yes, I, did my Reiki master, my level 5. I did chakra dance. I did, chakras. I just did all these studies on the energy centers of the body and all of these things. Little did I know that each one of those was leading to something bigger, but I could never put my finger on quite what it was, right? And I used to say, when my daughter graduated high school, I was going to leave the corporate world and figure out what I wanted to do with my life as I grew up.
It's interesting because that is exactly what happened to me too. Like I was in the corporate world as well.
Yeah.
I always felt like there was more, there was more. I worked mainly in beverage alcohol. And so I'm like, this can't be like, for me, it wasn't what I wasn't passionate about it. And I always thought there's more, there's more. And my story is long and diluted, but I had like 3 attempts at leaving the corporate world to start businesses, and they just weren't the right businesses until I came to this one. So how did you come to yours?
I had a health scare.
Okay.
I had a breast health scare and a thyroid scare. So my story is one that, sometimes you don't pay attention to the signs and the signals that are there. You get them, but you don't pay
Yeah.
attention because you're busy. Things are happening, but I hadn't been feeling well leading up to this. And as women and men, we just shove it down and we just keep moving forward, right? Because we make excuses sometimes about what's going on in our life. You've been really busy. I was just launching another call center in Honduras. And, my dad had just passed away. I was dealing with that. I was dealing with, my mom helping her to sell the home and just her going through it. And at the same time, I got remarried and was trying to put together 2 families, right? So there was a lot. And
Yeah.
so as I wasn't feeling good, I kept making excuses in my mind saying,
It's
okay,
stress, it's
right.
whatever.
It's this, is this. You know what? I'm going to have some vacation coming up soon. I'll get some rest. But we're always doing that. And vacation never comes because there's always another fire, right?
Yeah.
That shows up, it seems, anyways, when you're in the corporate world, there's always another fire. Anyhow, long story short, I was on a business trip and my breast was on fire one morning. And that was I can't ignore this anymore of how I
Mhm.
was feeling. And of course, for women, the minute that something happens with our breast health, we automatically think breast cancer. And
Yeah.
that's because we've been so conditioned to just, all we hear about is breast cancer. We don't hear about breast health. It's breast cancer. So of course I was terrified. I came home, I had all the tests done, mammogram, ultrasound, blood work done, was told everything was fine. I knew it wasn't fine. You know your body, and I knew it wasn't. So I researched because I am a researcher and my mom will tell you that I'm stubborn, but I don't like to take no for an answer. So I always try to find another solution.
That's
So
a good trait for an entrepreneur.
yes, it is. It really is. But who knew, right? All those years of my
Yeah.
mother's frustration that it would lead to this. But anyhow, it was interesting because I found thermography. And so I was able to have my scans done and, understand that my breast health was not okay. And neither was my thyroid, even though my thyroid showed up fine on the blood work. What I later learned, right, is that it will always show up within range until it's in disease stage.
Mm.
That's the key, right? You don't want your body to get to the point where it's in disease stage. You want to take those proactive steps. So for my breast, I had fibrocystic breast disease. I had inflammation here in the breast chest wall. I had hormonal influence happening in my breast tissue. Again, all these things are precursor to breast disease happening, right? So
Okay.
I learned a lot. But what happened, Hayley, is that in those moments of fear of what was happening, thermography hit my soul so deep and so hard that I still get a little emotional when I talk about it
Yeah.
because it triggered my passion. And my passion from the time I was a little girl has always been people. I love, love, love people. And my mom used to say, and my dad would say, first of all, that I talk the devil out of hell. And then my mom, I would, I would always stop and try to help whoever. It didn't matter. And had no fear of, if it was a homeless person on the street or whoever it was. I just love people. And I love helping people understand that there's so much more to them than this, right? Than what we see. We go so deep and we're such intricate human beings and our bodies are so incredibly intelligent, but we always give our power away instead of
Mhm.
bringing it back to ourselves. So in this moment, I had what I call my soul defining moment, and I finally found my purpose this lifetime. And for me, I will say that to the cows come home. This is totally my life's purpose. And I know it on every being because on the days as an entrepreneur, when things feel overwhelming and you forget to go back to your purpose, or
Mhm.
why you did this in the first place. Some days it is overwhelming. And some days you say, you know what? I just want to go be a Walmart greeter, or I just want to go for coffee for a day. Now, it doesn't last long, right?
Father-in-law wants to do.
Yeah, it's just those things that sometimes as entrepreneurs, right? You get tired as well too, because you're trying to make such a big difference. But sometimes those are the moments that you have to take a step back and go, okay, you know what? My body's tired and I need to take a break and
Mhm.
I need to take care of myself, right? So I've learned that as well too, being an entrepreneur, that those are the moments where I go, okay, time to take a step back, right?
Yeah.
Because you're not a workhorse as much of as, I like to think that I am, and I think other entrepreneurs is the same, is because when you find your soul's purpose, it's not a job. It's a
Yeah.
passion that is very difficult to explain to people. It keeps you going, it keeps you digging, it keeps you so on fire to help support that vision that you have or that business that you have. It doesn't matter what it is. If it's your soul's passion and your flame is ignited in your
Yeah.
gut, you can't stop that.
I love that. I remember doing the purpose work with you.
Mm.
And I remember I cried a lot.
Yeah,
it was
me
it was
too.
really emotional. And I think that that's what some people don't realize is like you gotta peel back the layers of who you are
Yeah,
to really, really connect. Like you can have that spark, but it's that introspective work, I think, that really allows you to bring it out in a way that other people understand it too.
right.
Yeah.
That was the reason why I reached out to you.
Okay, tell me. Yeah. So let's jump into that. So for those of you who don't know, Kathryn is a client of mine or was a client of mine. And hopefully we'll do some stuff together again.
Absolutely.
But when she first started out, she reached out. So what, yeah, tell me what was the reason you reached out? Where was your business? What were you struggling with? And then we can go from there.
There was so much, right? Because again, I quit corporate world, and in corporate, for those of you listening that are, part of corporate, if you've been corporate, yes, you're leading teams and stuff, but you have a marketing team. You don't have to worry about that stuff, right? You've got an IT team, you've got an HR team, you've got all the teams, right? That are experts in their own division. You become an entrepreneur and you are all of those people.
Yeah.
And so, as smart as you may have been in your role, you define yourself. So, that's for me, that was a big piece, right? Is that I was defined by my role for so long in the corporate world.
Mhm.
I didn't even
Me
know who
too.
I was, right?
Me too.
You
I was
lose
so
yourself.
lost when I decided to leave. I didn't know who I was anymore.
Oh,
Yeah.
because 20 some years, you're Hayley Bohan, you're the head of this, you're the head of
Yeah.
that, right? You're Kathryn Speer, you're doing, and it becomes so ingrained in you that you have no idea how much you actually lost yourself along the way because your identity now becomes your job.
Yeah.
And I had
Absolutely.
no idea that I lost myself in that aspect. And, one mentor of mine, I love her dearly. I'm going to name her name because I just love her. She's still in corporate. She's the CEO of Truro. in Phoenix, but Julie Weingart, she was one of my all-time wonderful best mentors. And she led with heart. She said to me one time, she goes, Kathryn, you're becoming a stress junkie. Right?
Interesting. Yeah.
Because again, it's what you take on into the different roles that you have. But here's how I came to want and needed you, right? It's because as I left corporate, thinking, okay, well, I've got all this background, this experience. Gosh, can I run my own business? So then when you start peeling back the layers, and yes, you have a passion, and yes, you want to get this out, but then it's like, where the heck do I start? And then when you start to realize you don't know how to do marketing. How do I explain this to people? Right? Because it impacted me so much from a personal perspective, but I'm also now starting to learn a new industry. I'm starting to learn medical imaging, thermography, all of the big long words. How do I take this to market and explain to people what this is so that they understand just how important it is to their health and well-being if they so choose to be proactive about it, right? How do I get this message out there? How do I do social media marketing? Dear God in heaven, help me, because
You're
that
good at it
changes
now.
and that changes on a dime, right? So
Yeah.
it's just how do you do that? And I knew at one stage, very early on, Hayley, that I needed help. And I couldn't be the expert. And I certainly didn't have the money to hire the experts that I used to do when I was in the corporate world, right?
Yeah.
Bring in a new client. Well, I knew I needed, I knew I needed operations managers. I knew I needed trainers and training supervisors, all those things, right? So so you go hire all those people that are smarter than you to do those
Yeah.
things. Well, you're an entrepreneur. You have to wear many hats, but unless you're trained in those areas, I think it would be very difficult for you. And
Yeah.
not only that, when I started with you, I'll never forget the question. You said, okay, so who does this help? And I remember saying to you, well, everybody,
Yeah.
right? It helps
Mm-hmm.
everybody. And it does. However, my passion, you helped me to identify. And yes, we did cry a lot because
Yeah.
there was so much
There's a
passion.
lot of emotion. Yeah.
There is, because what we do is, my big passion in thermography, for anybody who doesn't know me, is breast health care. Breast cancer will continue and is continuing to rise. And I am on a mission to help reduce breast cancer so that we get to a point where we are talking breast health, proactive breast health. We have, and I think I remember telling you this, I was so passionate about it. We have massage therapists that help us take care of our muscles. We have chiropractors to help us take care of our spines. We've got podiatrists to help take care of our feet. Who has ever taught us women how to take care of our breast? Nobody. And I can tell you in the last 4.5 years, I've talked to, I'm sure, well over 2,000 women throughout different events and my clients, et cetera. And it is the same story over and over again, right? Your breast, they start to bud when you're 12, 13, you're in hormones. You get whisked off to put a bra on. For God's sakes, don't make sure that nobody sees them through your shirt. The next thing, right? The next thing you're taught is they are to, feed your babies when you
Yeah.
decide to have babies.
Yeah.
They are then your spouse's play toy, right? And oh, by the way, make sure you put them in nice underwire bras so they're nice and perky looking.
Yeah.
That is what women are taught. We're not taught that your breasts are iodine storage containers of the body, right? We're not taught that they're also part of the lymphatic system and how the lymphatic system helps protect the body. I could go on and on, but
Yeah.
we're not taught how to take care of them. But yet we just wait until a disease appears and then it's, oh my God, you have breast cancer.
Yeah. We are taught how to do a self breast exam, but how many of us actually do like I was taught that when I was like in middle school or high school, but I've maybe done 5 in my entire life, only when I felt something, right?
Yep.
Then I'm like, how do like,
but can I tell you something though now? In the last 4 to 5 years, women are told not to do self breast exams anymore.
Stop. Why?
Yes. And most family doctors won't do a breast exam for you when you go in for your pap test either anymore.
Yeah, no, I don't know if my doctors have ever done a breast exam on me.
Yeah, no. And they encourage women not to do them anymore because women don't know what they're feeling and they panic. And what I was told by a medical doctor is for the reason behind it is because they plug the system with wanting mammograms.
Oh my gosh.
And you know me, Haley, I'm not afraid to talk about some topics that are
Mhm.
controversial around all of this stuff because, again, women are not given informed consent as it comes to their breast health. And if we were given informed consent, then we truly could make decisions based on what is good for us, right? I would, women always ask me, oh, Kathryn, if in this situation, what would you do? And I say, I can't answer that because what I would do for me is very different than what you might do for yourself. But having informed consent on all your different options is very, very important. So then you can make those informed decisions. And I know I'm going squirrel here on you, Haley,
That's okay. It's
going in a different
interesting. And
direction.
it's important. Like maybe somebody will help themselves after this
Right.
conversation.
And, again, you have to have, it takes 6 to 8 years for a lump to show up that's the size that's detectable by a mammogram. So by the time a mammogram is
What?
finding that, yes, ma'am. Yes, the American Cancer Society did that study, if anybody is interested. Yeah, 6 to 8 years. And then
Oh,
another
that gives me goosebumps and not in a good way.
no, it's not. It's absolutely not. Another company did a third independent study on it after the American Cancer Society did theirs, and they came up with 8 to 10 years. So, out there's different articles written that state, 6 to 10 years. So I just want your listeners to understand where that comes from, right? American Cancer Society was 6 to 8. The other third independent company did it was 8 to 10. So if you hear that 6 to 10 years, you understand why. But you see, when they talk about screening means it's already happened. So the disease is already there.
Mhm.
So what I'm trying to do is help educate women that we can take a much more proactive approach to our breast health. And let's start looking at what's happening in our breast from a functional perspective so that we don't end up in disease stage, right? Because there's a big area between it starting and it being found.
Yeah.
What's happening in your breast health and your body, your gut health and your lymphatic system, all those things that contribute to your overall breast health. What else is happening that we can help you to course correct so that you can change the course of that, which is what happened with me.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Yeah. I mean, I remember our conversations and it was all about like this proactive approach to breast health, which in the long run will hopefully reduce breast cancer rates and literally save lives and save a lot of heartache and like, you know, interruption to lives. So yeah, beautiful. Okay. So when you started with me, what was the biggest, like, what was the challenge? Because I think a lot of people start with me and sometimes they are like, I want to build a brand, but sometimes they're just like, I don't know what to do. They're not like, sometimes people think when they build a business, if they open up the doors, like
Yeah.
people will come, right? And when they don't, people are like, what was yours? Like, did you want to build a brand? Did you want to fill your, like, what was your goal?
I'll be honest, I didn't even know what I needed. I just knew that I needed help, right?
Okay.
Because I didn't have a marketing background. I didn't know how to market this. I didn't know who my ideal client was because I'd watched you, right? I was watching some of your videos you had on social media and checked out
Yeah.
your website, things like that. There were keywords that I never even heard before, Haley, right? It's like, who is your ideal client? I'll never forget listening to one of your videos, I think it was, and I'm like, oh, I didn't even think about that. And to me, it was, well, this is for everybody, but it wasn't, right?
Right.
And you helped me to identify that. So when you're starting out as an entrepreneur, sometimes and whether it's ego or, your background, you think, oh, well, I don't have the money for that or what have you. I'm going to tell you from my perspective, it's not an option. You have to have a Hayley in your back pocket helping you to guide you because you don't even know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And that's what I learned out through my process with you is some of the things that you trained me on. I had no concept because again, I spent 20 years in a corporate business where we had major marketing teams doing all those things, talking all that language, right? It's the same thing with accounting. It's the same thing with understanding your business. It's the same, like numbers. Yes, numbers I could do because I did that. But it's all the other things that go
Yeah.
into running a business when you're an entrepreneur and getting your message out. And I had no idea, Hayley, until I worked with you, who my ideal client was. And then when we went through that process, that was another soul defining moment because it helped me to nail down who and what my heart was calling out to
Okay.
and how that also dictated actions that I needed to take.
Let's pause and just let the audience know kind of what that process was? Because I think a lot of people now, when you talk about your ideal client, well, a lot of new business owners think it is everyone, right? Which it is not. You can't market to everyone because then it will be bland, it will be diluted. Like it just doesn't make sense. You can't appeal to everyone. So we went through a process to identify one, who they were, and then interview them.
That's right.
And the interviewing process is really, really important because it gives you, in their words, why it's important. It digs way deeper than anything else. I wanted to say this because the interview process really should not be skipped when you are creating a marketing strategy, a brand strategy, understanding your clients. And a lot of people now are like, oh, I can use AI. You guys, I love AI. Like I am a AI pioneer in marketing. No, I'm not a pioneer. I'm a heavy AI user. And I
Okay.
think that for small businesses, ChatGPT and AI can be a game changer, especially if you're not great at writing or coming up with ideas, stuff like that. A lot of people are using it to create their buyer personas now, their avatars, stuff like that. It doesn't know your clients.
Does
And so
not.
you can do it and it will be better than not doing it. But the absolute best way to fully understand your clients is to ask them, talk to them. And there's specific questions, that would be great for you to ask. So anyways, I just wanted to kind of stop there because so many people are like, I already know them and I know everything about them. And you don't. You got to actually ask the questions. So tell
And
me about
Hayley,
you.
yeah, so I'm just going to state this because we did this in the corporate world too. Okay. But it was called the voice of the customer. I'm sorry, you cannot get voice of the customer from AI because they are not your customers that are attracted to you and your energy and what you're bringing forth. They're not your customers. They have not had a personalized experience with you to speak about your product or your service offering. I will state that to the cows come home because it is my clients who push me forward with their feedback. And I collect feedback all the time because, again, we did this in corporate, but then you also showed me how important it was when I was doing that work with you. And
Yeah.
that interview process was so enlightening, Hayley. I'll never forget going through that with you.
Yeah.
And I was thinking we were going to use the data in a certain way, and then you blew my mind and how we ended up using it, right? And
Yeah.
everything. So your purpose, your mission statement, all of those things come from interviewing your
Yeah.
voice of your customer and their needs, their wants, their desires, what they're looking for. There was so many aha moments, Hayley, in that process with you. And that process took, it wasn't a one-day thing. It
No.
was it was like a couple of weeks if my memory serves me
Yeah.
correct. And then as we went on in that process with you, we would always revert back to,
What did
that
they say? What did they
they
say?
say.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
And you nail down again when you're doing, social media marketing, you're really nailing down the type of client base, right? Do they, for me, it was, and I still love this to this day that my clients were so much in alignment with me, right? Hiking,
Yeah.
outdoors, nature, loving life. And, they were, very intelligent. They like to research as well too. And they really wanted to take a hands-on approach to their health. And so it was really interesting for me to see that. I'm going to tell you, Hayley, I can't even imagine that I would get what I got out of that from AI. And I use AI too for certain
Yeah.
things, but when it comes to what my clients are expecting and what their needs are, you cannot get that from AI. I'm sorry, you just can't.
Yeah. I totally agree. And I think you could analyze the data in AI. I've had clients do that. Still not quite as good to me as doing it like in person. Like, yeah, I love AI. I love AI. I teach AI courses. I make my own little AI like I love AI. And for small businesses, game changer. But this is one of those things that don't like, it's better just to do it. So I know we're talking a lot about ideal customer, but it is so important
It is.
because like, just think about it, everybody, like not everybody in the world is going to spend money to be proactive in their health. There's certain types of people who are going to do that, right? and especially, technology that they may not have heard of. So there's also those people who will be more early adopters of that. So it's important, and not just knowing like there's a segment, but really like, who are they?
Yep.
Why are they the way they are? What do they want from me? Like all of that information. I'll put a link in the show notes to my buyer persona course. It walks you through it. You can do it on your own, or obviously you can take any program with me. And that's part of every program that I do because it's that important.
Yeah. And I highly recommend, and I'm not getting paid to say this for those of you who, but I want to say something. I've worked with a lot of people over the years in corporate business, clients and their teams and things of that nature. I just want to say one thing with Hayley is that this was a game changer for me, not just because of what Hayley teaches, because her teachings are phenomenal. Her courses that she's got online are phenomenal. I've used a couple of those as well, in addition to the training that she gave me. But here's what is different with Hayley. This is an emotional connection with another human being that understands what it is that you're going through because she's walked her talk.
Mm-hmm.
She gets to know you in ways that you didn't even know yourself. And she helps you to identify where your light is and what your strengths are. And then she capitalizes on that. And I get emotional talking about it, but I learned so much about myself going through the process with Hayley. That pays huge dividends when you are an entrepreneur, because I'm going to tell you, sit down and try to sell yourself. It's very difficult.
Yeah.
Right? To look at yourself internally and see where your gifts are and see what you're really great at, or get to the really Hayley had to take me deep on to really get me to what was my purpose. So yes, I had all the passion, but it was digging deeper. And there was a lot of things that, emotionally that came up as well too, that there were parts of me that needed to be healed through this process. And I know I'm not alone when I say this about working with Hayley. I've got other people that are very close to me as well too that are working with Hayley, and they're going through some of the same realizations about themselves, and you can't put a dollar figure on that. I just needed to say that, Hayley. So
and that's interesting because it's the intro. It's in my book. It's something that came out in my training that I didn't know was going to come out, but I think for small business owners, that introspection and that understanding, it changes everything. It changes the whole way in which you market your business changes when you really, really know yourself. And I know, you can read books, obviously, to help you do it, but sometimes it helps to have somebody pulling it out of you and having those conversations. I've learned though, through the years, to not go quite as deep because it can be triggering for some people who have had a lot of trauma.
mm-hmm.
And I'm not a therapist, but now I have the trigger warning. It's in the book too, the trigger warning.
Yeah, well, and I think though too that when you're an entrepreneur and you decide to put your heart and soul into something, it is you, right? So I think that's why it can be triggering for people, because it is a deeper part of you than you even knew existed. It's like when we talked about earlier, right? You know that there's something more that you are destined for, but then when you find it, you are going to go deep with yourself. And I think that that is probably one of the best evolutions of being an entrepreneur, is you are going to go deep. But you have to, in order to keep yourself going on those days where you just want to go be a Walmart greeter.
I feel like being an entrepreneur is also like this whole self-development. Like it is, it's so many facets of entrepreneurship require you to have more grit, have more empathy, have more resourcefulness, have more of everything, creativity, and step out of your comfort zone so many times. Like it is a work in progress for everybody to have the inner strength to be able to do all that.
And to also pull back when you know you need to pull back.
Absolutely.
Right.
Okay. So we worked together. We created your brand, your standout brand. We did a little bit on your social media. Oh, we kind of I think we were together for a year. Mm-hmm. So we had like a lot of time to do a lot of stuff. So tell me, like, what changed in your business once you were really more clear on who you were as a business and a brand? And
my business grew. My business grew leaps and bounds. I think within the first year that I worked, the first year following all the training, when I implemented everything, the business grew 200%. And now this was all during COVID, people, as well too. So okay,
that's right.
I opened up in January 2020, and everything went to hell in March 2020. So.
Yeah, it did.
It did, but that's okay, right? As an entrepreneur, you need to figure out how to climb those mountains. They're not obstacles. You just need to figure out how you're climbing. I always say you can stay down below and keep camping out, or you can figure out how to climb the mountain. So
I
it's
love that.
better to climb.
I love that. That's good.
Uh-huh. Definitely. And then, every year since then, it's been constant growth, but it's because I had the confidence, one, because I knew what I needed to do, right? There
Mhm.
was a plan, there was checklists, there was, getting into the flow of consistency,
Yeah.
right? That was really key. But also learning how to talk about my business because I didn't realize that words I was using were confusing people because of course, I threw myself into it. I enjoyed the medical terminology.
Yeah.
I understood it. I was, thankful for that. And I am a researcher. So if there was a word that I didn't understand, I would just research it to death. And then, it would be part of my vocabulary. So that was a really big piece too, Hayley, is throughout the process of learning how
Oh,
to,
yes. I remember all of that because I was like, I don't understand. And I think we just like see the invisible, be proactive with your health.
that's right.
And like to me, I'm like, okay, now I get it. And understanding like what it does, it's just a picture.
We're
Like
just making the
if you can
invisible visible.
visually see it, you will understand it. You don't need all the medical terms, right?
That's right.
And I think that
Yeah.
that is good because then everybody can understand. And if that is important to you, then you'll dig deeper. But I'm not as like I've been doing, obviously I've been I'm an ideal client for Kathryn. I've been doing thermography since I found out because yes, I want to be proactive in my health. If you guys are following me, I'm on this journey of like aging backwards right now. It was like I am her ideal client. And so it was good because I could be like, I don't understand that. I don't understand that. Like we need to
Exactly.
like make it more like
Yeah.
understandable, right? But
Yeah.
also have that heart and that punch be
Yeah.
something that people can connect with. So
Exactly. Yeah. So, again, I look back, Hayley, where I was to where we went was just, I will tell you, for me in the beginning, I was just floundering. And that's my kind of my word. I felt like I was just a fish out of water floundering around in this frying pan. And I just spent all of my retirement money that I had left. I sunk it
uh,
into this business. And I'm like, I need to figure this out because there was no going back.
yeah.
And I knew it, right? I knew it that I was not going back. So I needed to make this work. And I knew that I needed to surround myself with people that were smarter than me and knew how to do this stuff because I could do all the studying of thermography, but I didn't know how to do the rest. And that's what was really important when I partnered with you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. Okay. What would you say has been the most effective, like other than creating your brand strategy and like clarifying your messaging? Because that obviously, and your ideal client, like that obviously was pivotal. But what would you say is like the like most unexpected or the best marketing thing that you did that like got you more clients or more visibility or like that you did on your own? Like that, or it doesn't have to be on your own, but like what works for you?
There's a couple of things I think, Hayley, that I'd like to talk about. One, getting out of my own way. And what I mean by that is not overthinking everything. Okay.
Mm,
So being 100% real with people and understanding that the other person that's looking back at me, whether it's female or male, we all go through the same things in life. We all go through different emotions. We're all going to experience those things this lifetime. How we experience them are a little bit different. So understanding that I had enough confidence in myself just to be raw and be me, right?
yeah.
Talk about the things that, influenced me, knowing that it's not going to reach everybody, knowing that it's some people aren't going to like my style. That's okay, right?
Yeah.
You're not here to help everybody. You're not here to have everyone like you. And it's not about a personal thing. It's just energy. We are energy. So it was
Yeah.
being loving myself enough to show up as I am so that I could love others to show up as they were as well. That was huge. And it's still the same way. I love my clients. I know that God bless their hearts that they go through all these other things as well too. So if I can hold space for them when they come into my clinic, then that is my job, just to accept them as they are because I accept me as me and all of my flaws. So that was a big one. That was a big lesson because when you're in corporate, again, you present yourself a certain way. There's a certain etiquette. And of course there is in business as well too. I'm not saying there
Yeah.
isn't an etiquette, but it's to show up authentically because
Yes.
it is your brand. It is
What
your
a
business.
recurring theme in this podcast.
Yeah.
Show up authentically. And that's
Just
everything.
it is loving yourself enough, but you had to get to that point, and that's where you learn about yourself as an entrepreneur when you hire someone like you who
Yeah.
digs, right? And pushes those triggers so that you take a step back and go, you learn more about yourself, right? Because you've been defined from grade 1 to, as an infant to grade 12, you're defined by your parents and their rules and their thoughts and their thinking, right? Same thing as a young adult. And, you start to work and then you define yourself by the boss who you work with.
Yeah.
You get to a certain point in your life where you go, who am I? And when you have your own business, I personally, Hayley, for me, that was probably the biggest number one change is just showing up authentically all the time. And
Mhm.
sometimes that meant, I was going for a walk in the woods and I'm emotional because of something that, happened with my client and I'm sharing it on social media.
Yeah.
People need to know that I'm just a regular person like everybody else, right?
Yeah.
So that was one. Two, I love collaboration with people, connecting people, right? That's really important, and connecting with others that are doing some incredible things. So reaching out to various practitioners and always doing webinars with them, understanding what they're doing, supporting what they're doing, and educating my clientele on what and who practitioners are,
Yeah.
why they're important to their overall health. I think that's just been something that's continued to fuel me, because I understand being an entrepreneur, but I also understand running your own business and being passionate about whether you're a physiotherapist or a chiro or osteo or acupuncturist or whatever branch you go into, you're doing it because you're passionate about it. And I want to scream from the rooftops who these people are so that other people know that there is all that help out there. So I think that was number two. And
Yeah,
then
I love that. It's like building the ecosystem
right,
of complementary services
right.
that can help your ideal client. Like so that must be good for, well, obviously, so you have people to refer, but also they are probably, now they know you and they can refer you and gives you lots of great content and help with
Yeah.
your marketing, right? Gives you lots to talk about.
Well, the worst thing that I think, for anybody that's into thermography or any type of business that's given people information or reporting or testing, is to just give them their information and say, okay, see you later.
Yeah. What do you do with that?
Like testing, yes, testing is extremely important. And I've learned that myself throughout the years, right? Where supplements are this, that, or the other thing, and hope that the dart sticks to the dartboard, right? And you're like, oh, I hope this helps. But then you realize that the more testing you can do, the better you can nail down your action plan, right? It's like anything. It's like taking your car into a garage and getting them to do diagnostic testing on it instead of just going and buying parts at the auto parts store and, just throwing it on, hoping it sticks. So I think that's very important. And it was also important part of my business. And I know that we talked about that during the training with you, is that I didn't want to be a service-based transactional business. That wasn't anything that I was interested in. It needed to be a whole approach where if you did have a scan, then I'm going to work my ass off to learn and figure out who people are that I can help to give people options to consider to go next, right? Because the worst thing I think that you can do is give somebody a piece of paper with information on it and then leave them. What do they do with that?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
that was two. And then three, going on the road, taking it to people.
Mm-hmm.
That was huge.
That was a big thing. And those, what do you call those? Like offsite, what are you calling those?
Mobile clinics.
Mobile clinics. So those mobile clinics are pretty full at this point. I know when we had started, you were kind of doing it a bit and they weren't full, which is a lot of time, right? To travel and to,
And it was. And I want to share this too with any entrepreneurs that are listening. Okay. When you first start out, it is hard work and you have to be consistent. And I remember us talking in the early days, because when I started adding mobile clinics in various locations across New Brunswick, I would go for one person. Remember us talking about that?
Mhm.
And I know financially it didn't make sense. Time-wise, it didn't make sense at all. But I remember us talking about it and I said, yes, but that one person might be the person that has some really serious stuff going on with her breast.
Mhm.
And I always said, if I could make a difference in one person, then it was worth it. But also showing up for that one person not only helps them, but it helps other people that they may know. And that's, you just have to put your heart and soul into your business when you're starting, and you have to look at those opportunities to keep showing up. And it goes back to showing up authentically. If you're going to do this, then you better be willing to do it for one as much as you'd be willing to do it for 10.
Yes.
And I look back on
Yep.
that, Hayley, and as much as I know some people said, oh my God, you're crazy. You're going to drive like an hour and a half for one person and tear,
You couldn't do it now because you're too busy. You probably couldn't do it now because you're too busy for one person. But
But
when
now
you're starting, like,
right. But now I still have clinics now. There's a couple of them that sometimes it's 4 people.
yeah,
And I still go because again, some locations require longer period of time to
mhm,
grow, and that's okay. You
yeah,
know, sometimes as an entrepreneur, you have to look at certain locations. I mean, I've dropped certain locations as well too because it just didn't go, and that's okay. It's not a big
yeah,
deal. But sometimes you're so close to another location that it's, within a 25-minute driving distance or a 20-minute driving distance for somebody to come. So it's not a big deal, right?
yeah,
It's not like it's a 2 or 3 hour thing. So, you pivot, you take chances, you have to take risks, and then you weigh those risks, and then you pivot and you go, okay, that didn't work so good, but don't stop doing that. Don't stop experimenting. Right?
absolutely. When you say that, you could help what, so I'm really hopeful that this podcast will help somebody or multiple people,
Yeah.
right? Be proactive with their health. I was teaching a course at a university. And Kathryn so generously allowed some of my students to use her as a project, use her business as a project. And I remember one of the students that because she learned about this and she was assigned to Kathryn's company, her mother then learned about it and went, and it was very important that she had gone.
Mhm. It comes down to that one person. It's a ripple effect.
Yeah. So just such a beautiful thing to happen. Like that definitely made that class worthwhile to me. But but yeah, so I'm hoping that as people are listening to this, that if you are somebody who really wants to be proactive with your health, that whether you're in New Brunswick or not, that you definitely take a look and see where you have an opportunity to do this. I do it like regularly.
Mhm.
It's been very helpful for me as well. But it is definitely, I think, the way that we need to go from a health perspective. Let's be proactive instead of reactive. Let's, but like you said, like let's reduce the actual diagnoses.
Yes, the diagnostic, yeah.
Yeah,
And
of the
that's really
skin.
important too, Hayley, because our current medical system it's struggling. It's been struggling pre-COVID and it's struggling, more so now. I hear people coming into my clinic all the time that they're being told that it's a 2-year wait list or 3-year wait list. I know my husband's been waiting, I don't know, 4+ years now for rotator cuff surgery, and God only knows how
Wow.
much longer that's going to be. Right. So there's a lot going on. But what I share with people is don't hang your hat and be waiting for that phone call. There are practitioners out there that can help you to increase your quality of life, right? A lot of times, Hayley, it's not necessarily a diagnostic test that you need because it could be something as simple as, it's not simple, but I use this lady who had an inguinal hernia. God bless her heart. She was on long-term disability for a long time. They were getting ready to cut her off because she had all the testing at the hospital. Nothing was showing up. Well, she had referred pain. That pain was showing up in her lower back. She had an inguinal hernia. Inguinal hernia is in the front. It's at the bottom. It attaches itself to the bottom, like, of your abdomen and to the top
Yeah.
of the spine. Well, she had no idea because her pain was going through and coming out her back. So when they did the diagnostic testing, they were only looking at her lower back,
Oh my gosh.
right? So she came for a scan, and lo and behold, there was the inguinal hernia.
And is that like then she could treat that?
Yeah, then she went back to her doctor. They did further testing on it to confirm that it was an inguinal hernia. She ended up having to have surgery. But lo and behold, after surgery, guess what? No more back pain.
Wow.
Right. So sometimes, like, this is what I try to share with people is when you think about being proactive with your health, don't take the fact that, okay, you got pain showing up in the body. I got to wait now and have my doctor order diagnostic testing. I'm not telling you not to do that. What I'm saying is, don't sit around and wait for 2.5 years to live your life. Don't sit around and be in pain for 2.5 years. And for
Yeah.
goodness sakes, don't take what other people tell you into your brain cells because your brain is very powerful. Your cells in the body listen. So it's okay to hear a diagnosis from a doctor, but don't accept it. Because when you accept that into your cells respond, okay?
Hmm.
And and what I mean by that is I hear the famous saying all the time that doctors will tell patients, you're getting older. Learn to live with the pain. This is part of aging. This is part of getting
Ugh.
older.
I refuse. I refuse.
Exactly. And you should refuse. High five, Hayley, because that's just your body telling you that it's either out of alignment. It's got some dysfunction. It's got inflammation. It's something is going on. Be proactive about that, because I'm going to tell you, God willing, we all live a long life and we all get to age. But here's the thing with aging, you have two choices. You're either going to go aging with vitality and longevity and health and well-being and happiness and joy, or you're going to go through it with disease. And if you're going through it with disease, you can live a long life. My father, God bless his heart, lived 40 years with disease before he passed away. His life was not filled with vitality and joy, just like many other people that I know. It's disease management. And disease management is a very different vibration and energy. You're not enjoying your life. You're fearful. You've got doctor's appointment after doctor's appointment, pill after pill after pill. You feel sick. But if you age with vitality because you've surrounded yourself with practitioners that are helping you to be active, and you're still, like my client who's 91 years old, who's still rock climbing, God bless her heart, right? I want to be her when I grow up, right?
Yeah.
So there's all kinds of that available. And yes, it's hard work, but Hayley, here's something I want to share with entrepreneurs, to your listeners, to whoever's listening to this. Choose your hard. Disease is hard. Exercising and eating healthy is hard. Being married is hard, but being single is hard.
Making money with the business is hard. Making money as a corporate and not feeling super fulfilled is hard.
It's hard. So life is hard. And I'm not saying that to be negative, but we have hard choices to make, right? So, it's hard. Yes, it's hard, but choose your hard, because one hard will give you joy and satisfaction and peace and vitality. The other hard, well, it's really hard. So choose your
And
hard.
I think we should too say, like, if you are already, if you already have a disease, or if, you have a health problem, like, there is also things that you can do, keep your energy and vibration high. I mean, I'm not a doctor, but, I truly believe, like, my father was diagnosed with prostate cancer when I was in university. So this would have been 30 years ago. He lived for another 30 years, basically 28 years, as like, he lived a full life. He refused to believe that he was sick. He did what he needed to do to manage the disease, but he did not let that disease stop him from living a life that was full. And he did yoga and he did the stuff he had to do to stay healthy. And so, I mean, eventually the cancer went everywhere, and he was like older, like, almost 80 before he passed, but he like had no regrets, and he did have a disease so I just want to say, like, being proactive. Yes, we obviously need to do that, but there's also lots you can do to manage the disease and enjoy your life through that as well.
Yeah, because you can still, when we talk about proactiveness, it's not just whether you have disease or not. If you are in disease stage, still be proactive, because there's a lot that is available to you. And, and I also want to state this too, Hayley, is that I'm not here to talk bad about doctors. I have friends that are medical doctors and I love them dearly. I work with medical doctors,
yes, we need them. We need you. We need more of you.
But people don't understand, and doctors get a bad rap all the time, right? It is not the doctor's responsibility to look after your health. It is on you to educate you. It's the same thing, you learning how to cook. It's the same thing as you learning to become a mom or a dad, right? You got to learn skills. You're not just born with those skills. But it's the same thing. You have to learn to look after your health, whether you want to or not. And it's okay if you don't want to. There's no judgment. But then you will have those repercussions based on that, because your medical doctors are trained in disease management and emergency health care. They're not trained in proactiveness, and they're not responsible for your health. That is on us individually. And that's a hard pill to swallow when you really strip it down and you realize that all of my choices are a reflection of what's happening in my body, right? That's hard. Or, you can't just keep drinking and partying and eating crap all the time and then be shocked when something happens, right? So again, I don't want to be hardcore on people, because again, trust me, I've been there, done that. I still do it. I work myself sometimes to the bone, and, my body doesn't like it very much. I'm still there. Once in a while, I still also will eat like crap on a Saturday, or, if we're in the woods or whatever it is. We're human beings. But also taking that proactive step, whatever stage of life you're in, is very beneficial, just like your dad. He lived incredible for another 28 years, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, that is You guys check into this thermography stuff. It's really good. It's important. Okay. Well, oh my gosh. I know you and I could talk forever. And I was just saying to Kathryn, I haven't seen her in a while. And this week I get to see Kathryn today. Tomorrow we're going to an event. And then the next day we're doing some work together as well. So I'm so happy. This is going to be a great week for me.
Thank you.
I usually just see her for my thermography scans, right? Or photos. Anyways, thank you so much. And thank you for sharing. What if somebody wants to find you, work with you, learn from you? How do they do that?
Yes. So thermographyclinicnb.com is my website. On social media, Thermography Clinic NB. You can find me there as well. My number is 506-999-6302. And there's various ways. I'm on all the social media platforms. Email is info@thermographyclinicnb.com. And again, I am not just in New Brunswick, but also PEI and Newfoundland. And I've got various locations across New Brunswick as well, too. So please feel free to reach out. Even if you're not from the areas that I service, Dr. Mosterboy has all kinds of clinics all across Canada, the US, and some of the European states. So please reach out if you need some help to find it, because I'd be more than happy to put you in touch with somebody who is a certified thermography technician.
Oh, love that. Perfect. And I will put all kinds of that contact information in the show notes, you guys, so you don't have to pull over your car and rewind this. Okay. Thank you so much, Kathryn. Always a pleasure. And to everybody listening, have a great day, and to your proactive health.
Thank you, Hayley. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.